The tree that bends in the storm survives. The tree that resists breaks. Around 2,500 years ago, in ancient China, Lao Tzu watched people fight against everything. Against change. Against circumstances. Against reality itself. And he saw that the fighting was what destroyed them. Not the challenges, not the difficulties, their resistance to those things. Because resistance creates friction. Friction creates suffering. And suffering creates exhaustion. Meanwhile, the people who didn't resist, who accepted what came and moved with it instead of against it, they survived, they thrived, not because their lives were easier, because they weren't wasting energy fighting what couldn't be changed. Lao Tzu called this Wu Wei, non-resistance, and it's one of the most misunderstood concepts in all of philosophy. People think it means giving up, being passive, letting life push you around. But it's the opposite. It's about being so aligned with reality that you move through it effortlessly, like water, like air, like everything in nature that doesn't fight itself. Here's why most people exhaust themselves for nothing. They resist everything. Someone criticizes them, they resist. Life changes, they resist. Plans fall through, they resist. Things don't go their way, they resist. And that resistance takes massive energy, mental energy, emotional energy, physical energy, all spent pushing against what already is, against what can't be changed by pushing, so they're constantly exhausted, constantly frustrated, constantly suffering. Not because life is hard, because they're making it harder through resistance. Lao Tzu watched this pattern everywhere. Rulers trying to control everything and creating more chaos. People fighting, aging, and becoming miserable. Philosophers arguing about reality instead of accepting it. All of them exhausting themselves in resistance. Meanwhile, the farmer who planted seeds and let them grow without forcing was peaceful. The river that flowed around obstacles instead of trying to go through them reached the ocean. The tree that bent in wind instead of standing rigid survived the storm. Nature doesn't resist. It adapts. It flows. It moves with what is instead of fighting it. And because it doesn't waste energy on resistance, all its energy goes into actual movement, actual growth, actual life. But humans think they're smarter than nature. Think fighting is strength. Think resistance is power. And they exhaust themselves, proving they're wrong. Lao Tzu taught that the way of the Tao is the way of water. Water doesn't resist. Put an obstacle in its path, and it flows around. Put it in a cup, and it takes the shape of the cup. Freeze it, and it becomes ice. Heat it, and it becomes steam. It doesn't fight what happens to it. It adapts, and through that adaptation, it becomes the most powerful force on Earth. It carves canyons, shapes landscapes, overcomes everything rigid. Not through force, through non-resistance. He wrote, "What is soft is strong." What's he saying? That things which don't resist are harder to defeat than things which do. You can break a stick, but you can't break water. You can destroy stone, but you can't destroy air. Rigid things are fragile. Flexible things are strong. And flexibility is just another word for non-resistance. Being able to adapt to whatever comes without breaking. Most people think strength is rigidity. Having a plan and sticking to it no matter what. Having an opinion and never changing it. Having expectations and demanding reality meet them. But that's not strength. That's brittleness. And brittle things break under pressure. Real strength is adaptability. Being able to move with what comes instead of shattering against it. There's this story about a student who came to Lao Tzu frustrated. Everything in his life was going wrong. Plans failing. Relationships ending. Goals unreached. And Lao Tzu asked him, "What are you fighting?" The student listed everything. Fighting to save the relationship. Fighting to make the plans work. Fighting to reach the goals. And Lao Tzu said, "That's your problem. You're fighting. What if you stopped?" The student was confused. How can you achieve anything without fighting for it? And Lao Tzu pointed to a river. Is the river fighting to reach the ocean? No, it's flowing. It meets a rock and flows around it. It meets a cliff and flows over it. It meets resistance and becomes the shape that lets it keep moving. It doesn't stop, doesn't give up, but it also doesn't fight. It just keeps flowing toward its destination, using the path of least resistance. That's non-resistance, not giving up on your destination, but not fighting the obstacles either. Finding the path that flows, that works with reality instead of against it, that uses circumstances instead of resisting them. The river doesn't stop being a river just because it flows around rocks. It's still moving toward the ocean, just intelligently, just efficiently, just without wasting energy on resistance. Now let's make this practical, because you're resisting something right now, and it's exhausting you for no benefit. Think about your current biggest stress. What are you resisting? What reality are you refusing to accept? What circumstance are you fighting against instead of adapting to? That resistance is most of your suffering, not the circumstance. The resistance to it. Maybe someone left. You're resisting the reality that they're gone. Fighting to bring them back, or fighting with yourself about why. That resistance is the pain, not the absence. The absence is just what is. But your resistance to what is creates suffering. What if you stopped resisting? Accepted they're gone. Accepted you can't change it. Accepted reality as it is. The pain would still be there briefly, but the suffering would stop. Because suffering is resistance to pain. Pain is just pain. Suffering is what you add through non-acceptance. Or maybe a plan failed. You're resisting that failure. Fighting with reality about how it should have worked. Replaying what you did wrong. Refusing to accept that it's over and move forward. That resistance keeps you stuck, keeps you suffering, keeps you from seeing what comes next. But if you stopped resisting, if you accepted that this plan failed and that's just what happened, you'd be free to try something else, to adapt, to flow toward your goal using a different path. Or maybe you're aging, or sick, or circumstances changed, and you're resisting, fighting what is, demanding reality be different. That resistance doesn't change anything, doesn't make you younger, doesn't make you heal faster, doesn't restore what changed. It just makes you suffer while all those things stay exactly the same. Here's the practice. When you feel resistance, notice it. Feel where it is in your body. Usually tension, tightness. Then ask, what am I resisting? What reality am I refusing to accept? Name it clearly. Then ask, can I change this through resistance? Usually, no. So ask, what happens if I stop resisting? What happens if I accept what is and work with it instead of against it? That acceptance isn't defeat. It's strategy. It's choosing effectiveness over ego. It's being like water instead of stone. Water wins, always, because it doesn't waste energy fighting. It uses all its energy flowing, moving, adapting, reaching its destination the easiest way available, not the way you wanted, the way that works. Lao Tzu also taught about timing. He said, there's a time to act and a time to wait. Resistance often comes from acting when you should wait or waiting when you should act. Being out of sync with the natural timing of things, but non-resistance includes accepting timing. Accepting when something isn't ready yet, or when something is already over, and moving according to what actually is, instead of what you want it to be. The seed doesn't resist being a seed. It waits until conditions are right, then becomes a plant. The fruit doesn't resist being green. It ripens when it ripens. The winter doesn't resist being cold. It is what it is until spring comes. Everything in nature accepts timing, works with timing. Only humans fight timing. Want things now when they're meant for later. Want things to last when they're meant to end. And that resistance to natural timing creates most of our anxiety. What if you accepted timing too? Accepted that some things aren't ready. Some things are over. Some things need time. And worked with that instead of fighting it. How much anxiety would disappear? How much frustration? How much wasted energy? All of it. Because you'd be flowing with life instead of thrashing against it. Lao Tzu's final teaching on this is the paradox, that by not resisting, you actually accomplish more, not less, because all your energy goes into effective action instead of useless resistance. You adapt faster. You see opportunities resistance blinds you to. You move through obstacles instead of battering against them. You reach goals you would never have reached through force because you found the flowing path that force would have missed. Non-resistance isn't weakness, it's efficiency. It's wisdom. It's working with reality instead of fighting it. And reality always wins that fight. Always. So you can exhaust yourself, losing. Or you can conserve your energy by accepting what is and moving with it. The tree that resists the wind breaks. The tree that bends survives. You're the tree. Life is the wind. And you get to choose. Resist and break. Or bend and survive. Most people choose resistance because they think it's strength. Then they wonder why they're broken, exhausted, defeated. It's because they fought what can't be fought. Resisted what can't be changed. Demanded reality be different than it is. But you can choose differently. You can practice non-resistance. Accept what is. Stop fighting unchangeable circumstances. Stop resisting natural timing. Stop demanding reality match your expectations. And instead, flow. Adapt. Move with what comes. Find the path that works. Use obstacles instead of breaking against them. Be like water. Be like air. Be like everything in nature that doesn't fight itself and therefore wins every time. Lao Tzu lived this way and found peace while everyone around him fought and suffered. The peace is available to you too. Just stop resisting. Stop fighting what is. Accept, flow, adapt, and watch how much easier everything becomes when you stop making it hard through resistance. Subscribe for more Taoist wisdom.